In an industry stuffed with marketing bullshit, empty promises, and shiny-suited liars, one woman's had enough. She knows what it's like to have the wrong clients, no money, and no time for fun. But she also knows how to fix it. And on the Business for Superheroes show, she promises to tell the down and dirty truth about business, sales, and running away with the circus. Here's your host, Vicki Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the Business for Superheroes show. I'm Vicki Fraser, and this week I'm really excited because I am interviewing Krause Schwalm, who is an A-list copywriter extraordinaire. And if you've not heard of her before and you're a female copywriter or entrepreneur, you absolutely must look her up because she has worked and played in the same field as people like Gary Bencivenga, Jay Abraham, Clayton Makepeace, David Deutsch, Paris Lampropoulos, whose name I can never say properly, and as you have noticed, they're all men's names, which is partly why I've asked Kim to come on the show today, because she is on a mission to elevate women in copy. So, Kim, thank you so much for being here. Hi.
Hi, it's great to be here, Vicki. Thank you.
No worries. And how are you doing? And you know, what's going on? And can you tell us a little bit about how you got into copywriting and marketing?
Okay. Well, lots of great stuff's going on right now, and I'm sure we'll get to some of that later. But if you want to go back in time, I've been a freelance copywriter for 19 years, which is hard to believe. It seems like it's just kind of flown by. And prior to that, I spent more than 13 years in marketing, in different marketing positions within companies. So I never actually worked as a copywriter until I went freelance in 1998.
Okay.
But I always was a marketer who could write. And I think the fact that I really understand marketing well has given me an advantage, as far as being a good copywriter.
Okay, so cool. So I know that you've worked in some big corporates before, and you said before you started freelancing. So what would you say is the biggest thing that you learned working in that kind of corporate marketing world about kind of marketing and selling and creativity that you've brought to your copywriting?
Well, the greatest learning I had were actually in two different types of, if you want to use the word corporate environments, but they were very entrepreneurial environments. And so when I first got my first opportunity in marketing, I had moved laterally within a big insurance company into a new market-driven unit that had just been created to target the individual health insurance market, basically selling insurance direct to consumers. And so the guy who was heading up that newly created division as far as marketing was a guy who had a really strong direct marketing background with direct mail and, TV, direct response TV, newspaper, etc. So he saw an opportunity in what was considered the dog of the company. It was like the money losing division. We're only, because we're Blue Cross and it's a nonprofit, we have to have insurance programs for individuals who can't get insurance from employers. But what he saw was this was an untapped market. There was, an opportunity for direct marketing. So when he hired me, it doubled the size of the marketing department from 1 to 2. And it gave me the chance to just learn hands-on about direct marketing. And I wore every hat from, creating a marketing database, to writing copy, and everything in between, working with our telemarketing department, et cetera. So we basically grew that money-losing division within, I guess, a couple years, 2 to 3 years. We were the most profitable division of the company. We brought in, I think, more than 80% of the net profit. It was like 40 million out of like 60 million or something. I mean, it was like a huge amount of the net profit. We split off into a separate for-profit subsidiary. And we actually consulted to other Blue Cross Blue Shield plans to show them, how you do it. So it was really a great launch pad. And then from there, I went to what I thought would really be one of the cool things I always had aspired to. And I was a brand manager in another part of the company that wasn't nearly as entrepreneurial. It was the opposite of entrepreneurial. It was bureaucratic. I was a professional meeting attendee and I hated it. Even though it was like a very prestigious job and one of my coworkers had a Harvard MBA, I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? And I remember I was on so many mailing lists because being in marketing to the over 65 market with health insurance, I'd gotten myself, I was funny because at the time I was getting all these mailings from like Boardroom, and I remember getting like a Gene Schwartz package, the one about, rubbing your tummy, making your fat go away. And I remember sitting there in my cubicle looking at this, like, what is this stuff? And so as luck would have it, I found a job at a fast growing publishing company called Phillips Publishing, near Washington, DC. So I took this job it was in the early 90s, and the alternative health market was practically non-existent. But what Phillips Publishing had done, which was a privately held, very entrepreneurial newsletter company. There was like $100 million a year business just selling newsletters for every possible niche, including direct to consumer. All the consumer newsletters had a guru or personality behind them, kind of like our good friend Ben Settle.
Yeah.
But anyway, they launched an alternative health newsletter called Health and Healing back in the early 90s. And it was the first of its kind. It touched a nerve in the marketplace. They had a killer launch package that Clayton Makepeace wrote. I think everybody's heard of Clayton Makepeace. And within a year or so, they had 300,000 subscribers to this newsletter. So they hired me and some other people to say, hey, what else can we market to these people on the back end? We've got this great list. They've got a lot of strong affinity with Dr. Whitaker. They want to follow his advice. So we were kind of like this alternative health testing lab. Again, this was a very entrepreneurial company. It was encouraged to take risks. If you weren't failing enough, you weren't trying enough new things. That was probably, if you were to ask me, that was the biggest lesson I got out of my corporate experience was companies who don't do that. They get stalled. They eventually fail. They get behind their competition. They miss out on big, opportunities to grow their business. And so here's the classic example. Yeah, we had things that bombed. I would test different things. I had some winners, some losers. It was all good. But what we figured out after 6 months is what these people wanted were Dr. Whitaker's own supplements.
Right.
And no one else was doing a doctor formulated line. So I was asked to help launch it. And it was a separate subsidiary. And I even came up with the name Healthy Directions. And within 3 months, I had written all the copy and helped coordinate with my other team members. And we launched this business. And within 3 years, we grew it to a $23 million subsidiary. And it was just selling supplements to this back end. And now it's a big separate company. It's called Healthy Directions. And Lord knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars it makes. But so that's my point. It's like, take risks, make it okay in your corporate environment to take risks. But that's what I got out of that. And then, of course, just learning so much about writing copy in a company that really valued it and worked with, the very top copywriters. I mean, they hired people like Clayton Makepeace, Gary Bensavenga when he was still writing, Jim Rutz when he was still alive, and many others. So it was a great place to learn.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's so exciting. It's a really good point as well. And a really good point for up and coming copywriters that you have to take risks if you're ever going to learn anything or ever going to make anything, because, without that push, without that risk of trying something new, nothing new will ever happen. It sounds obvious, but, people.
It's true. I mean, I think that just applies to any business. I mean, I know you have a lot of people who follow your advice, who have their own businesses, or if you work for a company, again, though, it kind of depends. I mean, unfortunately, there are some companies that punish innovation. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were some leadership, certain places where I've worked before, after I had left, that they kind of squelched the growth for a while because let's just keep doing what we're doing. It's working. Well, guess what? At some point, it ain't going to work anymore. Yeah. And where are you going to be? And everybody else is going to be over here, and you're going to be way behind. So nothing is static. Everything is constantly changing.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So with all that, with all that amazing growth that you had in Healthy Directions, what made you decide to go freelance? What dragged you away from it? Because I guess you were making good money there. So what dragged you away from it?
Well, okay. So here's what was kind of funny. And you asked me, what's it like being a female freelancer? But okay, let's go back, 20 years, 23 years or whatever. What was it like to be a female, executive, even in a really great, innovative company? Here I was 32 and this young woman and, no supplement industry experience. And I think, I'm sure it probably wasn't so much the company leadership, but their board of directors felt that, well, who's running this thing? You guys are making all this money from vitamins and blah, blah, blah. Maybe there's a big opportunity here. Oh, some 31-year-old woman, with no supplement experience. maybe we need to get somebody from the industry, to come in and run the business. I'm going to leave out some details, but let me just tell you, that was like a disastrous decision on their part. The person they brought in, I was basically still running it, and I was doing all his board presentations. I was doing everything, right? And I kind of got tired of it. I was just like, screw this. I'm going to go somewhere else in the company. Within a week, I had 3 job offers within the company. Mm-hmm. And so I went to go work in a really cool up-and-coming publishing division with a woman that I just adored. We're working with Jay Abraham and Dennis Waitley. It's pretty cool stuff. Great. And so I walked away. And guess what happened?
It's gone.
In a week, they got rid of him. Because
really?
I was totally propping him up. Anyway, I didn't look back, but then I worked with that business, and then they had another newsletter that they had acquired with a big physician behind it. And so they said, hey, Kim, can you help launch another supplement line? So I did, with a whole team of people, and I launched that, and then I left and launched my first child.
Cool.
And then I came back and worked in the investing side of the business, which was not really where I wanted to be. It was a great person I was working with. I think he was still trying to figure out what the heck to do and what to do with me. Yeah. And to be honest, I think I got mommy track. And I'm like, you know what? What am I going to do next? I've been hearing a lot about this freelance copywriting. These people live a pretty damn good life. Let me give it a go. Okay. So I was able to, once I made that decision about 8 or 9 months after I'd gone back, after I'd had my first child, I had a full-time nanny. I was doing the whole corporate schlep, 60, 70 hours a week kind of deal. Yeah. And I was able to get a retainer arrangement with another supplement company in the area. And thankfully, 2 years previous, I'd had the wisdom not to sign a non-compete. I did not want any golden handcuffs. And so I was free to do whatever I want. I was free to freelance, right? Cool. So I got this great retainer arrangement with this client. And it guaranteed me 90% of my 6-figure salary for about half my time.
Wow.
So and immediately he referred me to other clients. So I had a full load of clients. I made 50% more my first year. I was able to keep my nanny. I was able to take breaks, go hang out with my son, take him for a walk, take him to Gymboree class, go back upstairs, get to work, and then when it was 5 o'clock, send the nanny home and, no commute. So it was really, really ideal. I feel very lucky. It was it was an amazingly easy transition for me.
Yeah, it sounds fabulous. It sounds like you really made the most of the opportunities you had as well, which is really also. So with that start then, how do you find great freelance clients now? How have you kind of carried that on? And
So they find me, or I meet people because I get out of my home office, on a regular basis. And I think it's very important to do that.
You travel loads, don't you? I've noticed it.
Not that much, really. I probably only go to it's stepped up more in the last year or two, because I did join, Brian Kurtz has a mastermind group, Titans Masterclass, which I just love. So we meet a couple times a year. And then the last couple of years I've been speaking at AWAI boot camp. So I go to that. But in terms of other things, I probably only go to a couple things a year. But you got to make the most of them. You don't want to sit up in your hotel room ordering in room service. You want to be, meeting people, talking with people, hang out in the bar, even if you don't drink, a lot of times I'm just drinking water. To be honest, people think I'm drinking something stronger. But, you want to have a clear head, you want to have a clear head the next day. So, but yeah, I take advantage of getting to know people, but you never want to look overly eager.
Okay, that's good advice. Can you expand on that a bit for people?
What's that? It's just show your value, demonstrate your knowledge, maybe talk casually about some of the things you've worked on. Talk about the other person. The other people love talking about themselves. That's like a basic Dale Carnegie thing. Show interest in other people. If you're tongue-tied and don't know what to say, just start asking them a bunch of questions about themselves, and they'll love it. And then when someone else joins your group, then you introduce this person to that person, and then they're just like, wow, they're loving you even more. Do you know what I mean? So it's not even like you're sitting there talking and bragging about yourself. They just like you, and so I guess that's advice. And then, like I said, the best way to get people to hire you is to have other people refer you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've found that's the best way that my best clients come from that, from referrals. So,
yeah. I mean, I'll say, it wasn't always like, okay, so I left Phillips. I had this great retainer arrangement, and I had this client referring me to other people. Plus I had other people who were either at the company where I left or had also left the company and gone other places. Either were referring me to others or they were hiring me wherever they had gone. And so, because I knew so many people, having worked there for 6 years and built a really good reputation for myself. So, I had just a lot of different referrals, but to get to, the more lucrative copywriting that I wanted to get to, which is, the long form direct response copy where you can earn royalties. I didn't just walk into that because it wasn't something the types of promotions I wrote when I was a marketer at Phillips were shorter promotions. And they weren't like the ones that they hired Clayton Makepeace or Paris Lampropoulos to do. So I had to work my way up to that, basically. Okay. And I finally got, I remember reaching out I ran into Brian Kurtz once, and I had met him before I ran into him at a conference, and, kind of like, oh yeah, I'm copywriting now. And he's kind of like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, and he kind of brushed me off a little. Sometimes I'd like to remind him about this because I think I'm embarrassed him. And then, and I remember writing letters to some other people too that I wanted to work with and never heard back, or emails. And so then I was doing a lot of work for a company called KCI Communications that published a whole bunch of financial and investment newsletters. And I was doing some killer renewal series and other types of short promos for them that were just kicking it. So like, well, let's give Kim a shot at a long form, direct mail promo. And the first one I did, and this is what earlier you're saying, take risk and all that. So here's a caveat for that, because, if you're just starting out as a copywriter, like, don't be cocky enough to think that you're going to just come up with some radical breakthrough different approach that's going to like shoot through the roof, right? Look at the things that are working and maybe be a little more conservative at first and, color within the lines a little. Be creative and go for the breakthrough, but don't like go too crazy. So like the first one I did for personal finance I got this vision. I could probably show it to you. I don't have it handy, but it's hilarious. It had like this big Godzilla monster on the cover, and it was something like the monster that ate the economy and, blah, 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 blah. And they actually, to their credit, they went with it, but, it didn't beat the control. It actually didn't do terribly, but it did not come anywhere close to beating the control. And the control was held by the legendary Jim Rutz, right? Wow. And he had an amazingly strong package, right? So, to KCI's credit, about 6 or 8 months later, they said, let's give Kim another try. And I'm like, oh, thank God, case in point. And this has been like, I wrote something once for Clayton Makepeace's, he had a website at one point called Second Chances, in praise of second chances, because I've had 2 or 3 clients give me second chances. And each time, this is when I was starting out, that second one was a home run. So in this case, my second promo, I took a little bit more conservative approach. I went with something kind of what they called an issue log, where it looked a little bit more valuable, kind of like a newsletter, but it was all, direct response copy. Mm-hmm. And it beat Jim Rutz. Wow. And this was like their flagship newsletter. So they mailed a lot of names. So, about 6 months later, the marketing director I worked with at KCI was at a financial, marketers roundtable that all the big publisher marketing people went to every year. And Brian Kurtz was talking to this guy. He's like, so who's got your personal finance control now? And he's like, oh, Kim Krause's got this, and Brian could not call me fast enough. And as soon as he did, he's like, you want to write for Boardroom? I'm like, well, okay, like now you're not ignoring me anymore, Yeah. And then that's when I wrote, something for Tax Hotline, and I beat Paris Lampropoulos the 7-year control. And I was female copywriter to get a Boardroom control. And then next thing I know, the other client that I wanted to work with who ignored my emails, hey, can you write for us? So, if you get some early successes, or whenever you get your successes, people will talk about them. Word will get around, and you won't have to worry about finding work.
Yeah, that's top advice. Thank you so much for sharing that story. That's I'm really hoping everyone's paying close attention to that. We'll listen to it again and again, because it's just it's really cool that you beat their controls as well, just from like a woman writer point of view, in a slightly kind of childish yes kind of way.
Yeah. Well, you know what's so great? Okay, so I talked about, even though I absolutely loved the company I worked for and the founder, Tom Phillips, I mean, I just feel like lucky to have worked at a company like that he created. But, you know, it's like, and maybe things have improved in the last 20 years. I don't know. But, you know, there always was a little bit of sexism about women reaching a certain point, you know, a little bit of that glass ceiling. And I do feel like what's wonderful about the direct response world, as long as you can get the opportunities, it's all measurable. It's all numbers. No one cares if you're black, brown, purple, black, you know, female, male, you know, transgender. Who the hell cares? You know what I mean? It's like, if you can write a control, you know, you don't care about the other stuff. And no one's going to say, well, you only get X amount of pay because you're a female or this and that. It comes down to what kind of deal you can negotiate. And that's, you know, that's no whole other subject matter. But, you know, your numbers are numbers, you know, it's cold, raw data. You can't argue with that, you know, versus when you're sitting there having your annual review with a boss. And like, I had a wonderful employee. This is when I was working for the guy that I was propping up who got fired the week after I left. I had a wonderful female employee. She was due for a promotion. And I wanted to promote her to marketing director, but she was also like just a few months pregnant, hadn't, you know, announced it yet. Yeah. And I purposely hid that from my boss because I knew, sadly, that if I told him, well, you know, she's a couple months pregnant, he'd be like, well, let's hold off on the promotion. I'm like, damn, she's getting her goddamn promotion. I know she's going to be back after she has the baby. And sure enough, she did. But we kept it in cahoots and she got her promotion. But sadly, that was the environment, you know?
Yeah, I suspect that's not as rare as it should be nowadays either. So
no, probably not.
So cool. So part of the reason I've been asking you all these questions is obviously because I know that my listeners are going to find it really, really helpful, but also because I wanted them to realize how successful you have been and what a staggeringly good copywriter you are, and how you're still not yet one of the big names on baby copywriters' lips, and nor are other women. And, you know, why is this? And I kind of wanted to get into a little bit of, you know, I know there are amazing women copywriters out there because
there's a lot of them.
There are a lot of them. So why do you think that they are not as well known?
I don't know. I think that there has been a little bit of a boys' club. They all know each other. You know, they get invited to the same events to speak and all that kind of stuff. I do see that that's gradually changing. But I do think that if it's, you know, if I look back at my story has been one of the reasons I wanted to be a freelance copywriter, aside from the financial opportunity, was I wanted to be home with my kids. I mean, I always had nannies when they were young, and I had, you know, they were in preschool and whatever, you know. Didn't like try to do full-time jobs at once, right? But I've had amazing flexibility. I was able to work shorter and shorter hours, 4 or 5 hours a day when, you know, I was taking them to and from school and their activities. So I guess my point is I've always had a very packed schedule just between being full-time, you know, being a successful copywriter and being mom. And I started adding all those other things. It's like, well, do I really want to add speaking? And honestly, and I know I could probably name 4 or 5 women off the top of my head who are fully booked out months at least, if not a year in advance in their schedules. So there's no reason to traipse around to conferences or be speakers or write articles or promote themselves. You know, they got plenty of work. It's all they can do just to juggle, you know, that us women, working moms and working women juggle, right?
Yeah.
They don't have wives at home who are doing it. Guys, right? So, I think that's just the best way I can explain it. So I think what just kind of hit me a few years ago is, you know, I've got one already off to college. One, she's like, you know, a year from college and she's super independent as it is. I can actually now, you know, not breathe. I'm still super busy, but just say, hey, you know, what else can I do to kind of help other women see that this can really be this would be really great for them? Because I might even just tear up even talking about this, but I mean, I just feel so incredibly grateful that I've had this opportunity for 19 years. I mean, I just feel like I've been able to watch my kids grow up. I've been able to support my husband's career. I've been able to have a fantastic career that I love. We've been able to have, you know, established, you know, financial security. We've been able to travel all over the place, you know, and, you know, we've had a pretty great life. I mean, like anybody, we've had our different struggles along the way. Like when my husband had cancer 4 years ago, you know, but I could put the time into really helping him and supporting him. You know, it's been wonderful to be my own boss, and I just want to help other women see that they can do it and give them the support they need to be successful.
I think that's such an amazing thing. Yeah.
I want to help the guys too, but I'm just saying, as a woman, I just feel like they don't see, like you were saying, they don't see enough that there are women who are able to do this and be successful.
And you know, you're so right about that, because when I've not been in this game for very long, I've only been writing for 5 or so years, and I had to really dig around to find any female copywriters that I could look up to, and it's just such a shame. And yeah, it's amazing to learn from kind of the big male names, but you know, you want that kind of female role model as well to say, you know, it is possible. It's possible to get up there and, you know, live the same life that these guys are living. So what is your plan? What are you doing for women? What do you want to achieve, and how do you want to do it?
So I'm just in the early stages of forming my plans. I mean, I've still got a fully overbooked schedule of clients that I'm writing copy for. But, you know, the first thing I've done, and it was super easy, and the first thing I wanted to do was really create a community, right? So I created a Facebook page called The Girls Club.
Yeah.
And if you look for it on Facebook, I think if you search thegirlsclub.club,
yeah,
or if you just type in The Girls Club, you know, you'll find it. I mean, there's a lot of things that come up under Girls Club, and I'm not sure what some of those are.
I'll put the link in the show notes as well. So yes, so but people will be able to find it. Yeah.
Now, copywriter, entrepreneur, marketer, graphic designer, other freelancer, you know, in the direct response industry. You know, this is a great group. And I think it's a place where I get on there and post things, but it's really, it's a lot of other women there who are, you know, got some pretty amazing women in the group actually who are pretty seasoned. And so if you have a question, if you need support, you can just throw something out there, and it's a great community. And so, yeah, where do I go from here? I don't know. I have a small boot camp intensive next month in LA that I'm in the process of organizing. It is really short notice, but for people who are motivated and spontaneous and flexible, it's going to be taking place on March 7th. So, depending on when you air this, I don't know, we can maybe get some details to you if there's still space. But then beyond that, I do have, a product I'm in the process of developing that I think will definitely appeal to women and possibly to some men. And I may even have more of a private coaching group that I'll be creating. So that's all to come.
Okay, that all sounds really exciting. And on the subject of the Girls Club Facebook group, I am obviously in that group, and it's such a great place to be. And like you said, amazing women in there, and you spend a lot of time in there as well, which is really fab. So, guys, I'm going to put the URL for that up in the show notes. So,
okay.
Yeah, they can join.
I also have a free report that I wrote. Actually, I wrote it way back in I think I wrote it back when I was at Phillips because I was training other people in copy. Yeah. And then I updated it in 2009, and then I forgot about it. And then last fall, when I was going to be interviewed in Ben Settle's group and I wanted to have something to offer people, I found it sitting on my hard drive and updated it some more. But it's 7 success principles for writing winning promotions. And it's basically my secret sauce. It's a very summarized version of, it's not as super in-depth, obviously, but if you follow each of those steps, it's it really is the framework for a successful promotion. Yeah. And so if people, men and women, want to get their hands on that report, they can go to themarketingsuperpower.com, and that way you'll also be on my list for any other future updates.
Cool. And you totally should get that as well, because I have it. It sits on my desk now whenever I'm writing stuff. Oh, it's one of my little Bibles. Yeah, it's fab. It's just so easy to read, and it's just so, everything's simple. It's just simple. It's just fab. So yeah. So that's brilliant. So what's your hope for the future then for women in copywriting? What would your ideal be?
Well, I think we're already seeing it. I know at least of 2 or 3 other women who are also in the process who have Facebook groups who are kind of getting more out there and getting more visibility. A lot of the women, or a lot of the people I go up against with my copy, in terms of, trying to beat their controls, are female, or some that have beaten some of my really old, like 8 or 10 year controls that are like totally fatiguing are women. So, I think we're going to hear more about these gals. And I think if there's another huge event like Brian Kurtz's Titans of Direct Response, which was really focusing on, the 20, 30 year history of Boardroom, which clearly going way, way back in time, it was pretty much all men, that were writing copy and really had helped build the company. But I'm hoping should he do another event 5 years from now, which who knows, maybe we can convince him to do, at least half the people on that stage might be women. And that would be my hope. I think there's a lot of really successful women in direct response that have gone unrecognized. And I think that I want to help elevate the rest to get there. So.
Oh, that's great. I think that's a great vision, and it's totally doable as well. So I'm right behind you on that, and anything that I can do to help as well will be,
Great.
Okay, so people can find you on the girlsclub.club on Facebook. They can find your report on the marketingsuperpower.com.
Yeah. And they can also go to my website, which I haven't bothered to update in like 6 or 7 years because I don't really need to. I really should these days. But it's kimschwalm.com. It's KIMSCHWALM. And also, just so you know, my middle name is pronounced Krause. That's my maiden name, and I've spent my entire life, telling people how to pronounce it, so don't feel bad.
I should know. I should have checked it.
But yeah, the website is kimschwalm.com because there's no reason I have to type all that other stuff in. So
cool.
That's how you'll find my website, and you'll see some samples of my work and learn more about my background.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And I want everyone listening to listen to this over and over again, especially the copywriters out there, because there's just gold buried in this. So thank you so much, Kim. I really, really appreciate this.
Oh, thank you. You're great. You're a great interviewer, and it's great to be here today.
Oh, thank you. And next week, Joe is back. Normally I do these podcasts with my husband, and we drink gin, and it's mildly hilarious and chaotic. So he's back next week, and we will be talking about something else. I will put that together. It'll be something to do with marketing. But in the meantime, thanks so much, Kim. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll be back next week.
Okay, thank you.
Like what you've just heard? Tell your colleagues, tell your friends, send them to www.businessforsuperheroes.com/podcast.